The Supreme Court is in the middle of a high-stakes debate over who gets to be a citizen at birth. It all centers on a Trump-era executive order that challenges the long-standing rule that anyone born on U.S. soil is automatically a citizen, even if their parents are here illegally or on temporary visas. And joining us now to break down what this all means is Thomas Berry with the Cato Institute. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Complicated issue, but let's start by just simplifying it. What is birthright citizenship, and why is this such a big deal in this case?
Sure. So birthright citizenship comes from the 14th Amendment, which is one of the constitutional amendments enacted after the Civil War, an attempt to remedy the pathologies that were tearing the country apart during the Civil War. And its main purpose was to make it clear that everyone, including slaves and the children of slaves, were citizens at birth in the United States. No more distinctions based on your status at birth.
President Trump's executive order challenges that. So the question is, what is he trying to change, and what's his legal argument?
His argument is that people who are in the country illegally, their children should not be citizens, even if they're born within the United States. He's focusing on text in the 14th Amendment that says you're a citizen if you're born in the U.S. and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. The key question is, what does that mean? Does it? The Supreme Court has said that's basically just applies to like children of ambassadors who have special immunity. Trump's arguing no, the exception is a lot bigger. If you're here illegally, you're not subject to the jurisdiction of U.S. law.
So now the Supreme Court is hearing this case, but they're not focusing on the birthright issue. Instead, they're focusing more on these nationwide injunctions. What is that?
A nationwide injunction is where a single trial court says that this law is illegal or this action is illegal, and I'm not just going to block it with respect to the people who sued, people in the name of the case caption, Smith versus Trump. I'm going to block it for every single person in the country. So every non-citizen, every person in the country illegally can be confident that their children will be citizens at birth. It's controversial because it essentially allows one judge to decide a question for everyone, not just for the single case before him.
But I know specific judges have had very pointed questions, in effect saying this could be a slippery slope. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, both sides have been concerned about nationwide injunctions because it short circuits the normal process, which is different trial judges reach different conclusions. You work your way up the system, you appeal to the 13 appellate courts, and then finally you get to the Supreme Court at the top of the system, which decides for the whole country.
So if the court does side with President Trump, what does this then mean for citizenship rules?
It's important to emphasize they're not at the merits yet. So even if they side with Trump in this case, that doesn't mean they're deciding he was right on the constitutional question. It only means they're deciding that the nationwide injunction was not appropriate in this case. They might even decide they're never appropriate.
How concerned should people be? I know there's been a lot made of, okay, again, the slippery slope nature of this all, but just everyday Joe Q citizen out there, how concerned should they be about this?
Well, this would be a huge change in the law, and I think a very bad one if Trump eventually wins on the merits. It would mean it would be much more complicated to know who's a citizen. You don't just show your U.S. birth certificate. So that's certainly concerning. In terms of this particular case, it really depends on what state you're living in, for example. Several states have won cases saying everyone in my state should have the protection, should be a citizen while this is being litigated, including New Jersey, which argued this. So what we might see is more people moving to those states on a short-term basis to take advantage of their wins in this case.
What does it mean for naturalized citizens?
That shouldn't be an issue. That shouldn't be a problem for them. If they got it through any other process besides birthright citizenship, that should be fine. And in fact, this order only applies going forward. So even if you're already born in this country to people here illegally, you're still a citizen permanently. It's only a question of people who are going to be born in the future to people here illegally.
So again, just to simplify it, what happens next? What should folks be watching for in the week to come with the Supreme Court, even the lower courts?
Yeah, so the first question is, what's the Supreme Court going to do? Is it going to say this nationwide injunction was fine? If it does that, everyone is a citizen going forward. If it says this nationwide injunction is not fine, you have to look at the details of the opinion. What states does it apply to? What states doesn't? Potentially, starting 30 days after that decision, people born to people here illegally in certain states might not get granted citizenship at birth. But if they eventually win this case, you would go back and you would say, you are entitled to citizenship. We're going to remedy this illegal action.
Say the Trump administration loses this. Is there recourse for them, so to speak?
Sure. Even if they lose at this stage, it's still not a final decision on the merits. So you would go back down to the lower courts, litigate on the merits. Essentially, the status quo while it's being litigated would be blocking the law. So everyone who's born would be a citizen no matter what. It could take as much as a year, maybe even 2 years to get back to the Supreme Court on the merits, but then we'd finally have a slower and more deliberative debate on the constitutional question.
When can we expect an opinion?
In this case, it could be as soon as this week because the court fast-tracked this argument, which shows that they know how urgent it is.
I know it's a complicated issue. We've tried to boil it down as much as we could, but still, there's still the devil's in the details. Thomas Berry, the information for you right there, social media handle on your screen. We couldn't get your full title in there. We said you're with the Cato Institute, but you're actually the director of
Constitutional Studies.
Okay, so he knows what he's talking about. That's what that means. We thank you so much for your time this morning.